Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about how heartbreak can show up on your finances. Like I've been sharing in some of my latest posts, finances is more than just numbers. Sometimes there's some internal healing that needs to happen first, right? Sometimes we know what we're supposed to do, but we don't necessarily do it. And that might be because we're having some internal blocks that are hindering us, that are making us not take that action, right? So if you've ever experienced that in your finances, if you've ever experienced that with money, that might be rooted maybe in heartbreak. I mean, it can be rooted in many, many different things, but one of the things that but one of the root causes can be heartbreak too, and that's why I thought of inviting today Amanda Frey from AmandaFrey.com. She's a motivational speaker, coach, mentor, faith walker, spiritual teacher, and life transformation strategist. And she works with women around the world, helping them to overcome hurt and heartbreak so they can step into new beginnings, walk in wholeness, and live a life of fullness. So I'm gonna ask Amanda to join. I think it worked. Hello. How are you?
Good. How's it going? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so
Oh,
much for joining my
yeah.
IG Live.
I'm so excited. Like, I literally cannot wait. And I feel so thankful that I get to be here with you and we get to both share a little bit of our hearts.
Yes,
So,
yes. Thank you so much. As I was sharing, I really believe that so, finances is more than just numbers, right? And sometimes some of our past heartbreaks can be expressed in itself with how we manage our money, or how
to-
we do not manage it. And that's why I thought that it'd be great to have you, since you're the heartbreak expert, the one that helps how to heal from heartbreak. So, yeah. Um, should we just dive into what we thought of sharing today?
yeah. And I think, yeah, just kind of to go off that, what this is, we might as well just dive right in. But totally, I feel so thankful to be on here because, like you said, like when we are hurt and heartbroken, a lot of times those are rooted in other issues. And if we don't heal from those issues and from all the things that have happened to us in the past, then we end up, kind of just putting that hurt and through our actions. And so one of those actions can be through trying to fill those our voids and the hurt that we've had through financial things, and then that's how we end up in financial issues, right? And like just financial problems. So yeah, totally, it feels so great to be here, and yeah, let's just dive right in, girl.
Okay, cool. So what I'm thinking we can do is maybe we can share a little bit of how this heartbreak can express itself in our finances, just so that people watching, they can see, oh yes, this has happened to me. Yes, I'm experiencing that, and then we can go deeper into where it could possibly be coming from and what to do instead. Okay,
Yeah, totally.
sounds
Let's
good.
do it. Let's
Okay,
do it.
so the first thing that I have here is spending to feel better, right? Maybe you fall. I mean, I know I've experienced this, and maybe you've had a bad day, right? And so instead and just to get your mind off of that bad day, you just maybe go scrolling on Amazon, right? Or you go to Target just to feel better, and then you end up spending money that maybe you didn't necessarily budget for, right? And I did want to share a personal story around this,
Yeah.
um, that it is related. Well, in this case, it's related to heartbreak with boys, right? So I remember I used to date this guy. We were kind of seeing each other, but then it turns out that he didn't want something serious. He didn't want to commit for something. And I remember that I did not like, obviously, that answer. I didn't like the fact that he didn't want to commit to something serious with me, like a nice relationship or anything like that. He was just playing around. And so to feel better, I planned this trip with my friends. I said, let's go to Machu Picchu. Let's just have fun, right? I'm this strong, independent woman. I don't need this man. I'm going to show him all over Instagram how I'm enjoying my trip with my friends, right? And so I swiped my credit card. I didn't necessarily know that that was something that might play against me, right? If I carried interest. And that's, I ended up using my money in a way that wasn't wise because of the rejection that I experienced.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's so real, because it's like, we think that, like, yeah, we are living in real life, like we are gonna have hurt and we're gonna have heartbreak, but when we don't know the importance of actually getting real healing from that, those are some of the things that can happen. And so yeah, we're totally focusing on like financial issues today, and like how we have these voids then in our heart, and we don't know how to get real healing. We don't know how to get transformational healing, as I like to call it. And then we end up in these like financial debts and these like situations where it's like, we were trying to fill these voids through finances or through other, it can be other things as well. But then it's like, then we actually end up in more hurt. We end up in more heartbreak, because now we're dealing with even more issues that we have to deal with. We have to figure out our financial situations now, right? Like, and that's even more, that's just piling on top of all the hurt that we've already had. So
Right.
yeah, no, that's such a great
It's like
story.
adding to the heartbreak.
Yeah, it's like adding on top of it, because we are thinking like, oh, like I'm just gonna go spend all this stuff, like have, look like I'm rich and have all this, great things to fill this initial hurt. And then it's like we end up getting an even more hurt. So yeah, it's totally like such a real thing. And I feel like the world, like, we don't realize that. Like, we kind of, like what I was saying earlier, like we always focus on like the external stuff, but like even financial issues are really rooted in internal things. Like, and so it's such a thing that needs to shift in our world and in our culture, that like, yeah, the external and like what we can see is great, but like truly like transformation in anything, whether it be your finances or your whole life, starts with the internal healing that needs to actually take place.
Yeah, yeah. I really agree with what you're saying, because I mean, looking back, for example, I enjoyed my time. I enjoyed that trip. But
Yeah.
that was kind of like putting a band-aid on top of that. So it did feel good that moment. But then I know, because I didn't necessarily heal from that rejection. I didn't heal from that experience. And I think that experience also accumulated itself with other rejections that I've experienced in the past, with other failed relationships, right?
Yeah.
And since I didn't properly heal, it actually expressed itself again, me trying to prove that I'm strong and independent by swiping my credit card,
Look
right?
at me.
Exactly, like I'm having so much
I
fun.
don't need no man.
Exactly. Exactly. And then I just ended up in an even worse financial situation. Like I've been sharing in my profile, like I got into collections, like it just became worse and worse, right? So yeah, what you're saying is true. It's like we need to find that transformational healing first. And
Mhm.
sometimes we're just focused on like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I just spend, or I don't know why I just can't help myself. And you feel that you can't, you just fall into this self-sabotage, but you need to try to find that root cause. Where is it coming from?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love like the word root causes. Like I say, like I'm pretty sure I was supposed to be like a therapist, and and that's why I've decided to transition into like coaching and stuff, because I love the mind, and I love like just that fact, like everything that I feel like, a lot of the hurt and heartbreak and just like the issues that the financial things that we fall into come from the root things that are deep down inside of us, and we don't choose to deal with that. We choose to, or we try to deal with it, but we deal with it in the wrong way, right? So we try to deal with it by, oh, I'm just going to go and get all these like financial things and, look like I'm successful and like show that I don't need no man. Like I'm an independent woman, like, and that ends up, actually hurting us even more. So totally hear you, totally feel you. And yeah, so good, girl. So good.
So I guess for people that are watching, what would be like if they find themselves like, hey, I'm also falling into. I've also realized that I've been spending money that I've maybe been spending over, right? What I
Mm-hmm.
above my own means, right? The only way that I can sustain my lifestyle is with credit cards, right? And they're realizing they're having this issue, and maybe as I'm sharing my story, whoever is listening, you're also feeling like, I also kind of feel that um I go into spending money or buying things or trying to show what I am doing, and I think it might be related with past heartbreak as well. Like, what would you suggest they focus on or do?
I think I will always 100% suggest that you always have to start at building a solid foundation, and that solid foundation starts with truly getting real healing and transformation and actually dealing the hurt and heartbreak and just the different things that you've had to walk through in this life, whether it be fair or unfair or brought on yourself or how whatever it may be. We do live in a broken world. We are all going to experience heartbreak and hurt, and I think we don't start at the right place when we try, and I think we live in a culture where it's kind of looked down upon, like, oh, I'm not going to talk about my hurt and my heartbreak, and it's like
Right.
a bad thing. Like you never want to tell someone that, like, wow, I'm really hurt, like I'm really heartbroken. But we have to start realizing that, even if you don't want to tell anyone, that you have to deal with it, you have to face it, and the first place to start is truly getting transformational healing, actually healing from the hurt and the heartbreak that have experienced in your life. If you
Yeah.
ever want to move forward, if you ever want to live in financial freedom and have great finances and have, just like an abundant life, like I always talk about this thing, like an abundant life, abundant living, like that will only happen if you truly deal with the inside first and you deal with the hurt and the heartbreak that has happened throughout your life first.
And I think it's so important what you're saying also, Mandy, about um talking about hurt. Like, it's kind of frowned upon nowadays, especially now in social media, that we are sharing the picture perfect life, right? And then in a way to admit that, hey, I am struggling with this, it kind of it's like, I know I've experienced this, that I didn't I to this day I still struggle to share about my own roadblocks or my own hurts and my own pains, right? Because one, I don't want to be perceived as a failure, right? Like, oh, you look like you're supposed to. For some reason I feel like I need to look like I have everything put
Yeah.
together, right? And I think sometimes it's also not wanting to admit to ourselves, right? um, Things are not perfect, and that's okay. I can I should address these things if I truly want to move forward, and by addressing these things, that's when you truly change, right? I really believe that any external goal,
Mm.
it first is achieved by winning internal battles, and
Yeah.
sometimes those battles are dealing with the pain, right? Facing it face to face, and just and admit, like, you know what, this truly hurt me. I'm gonna let myself feel this pain, and I'm going to work on overcoming it and focusing on that. And after you focus on that, then you'll start seeing that external change that you don't want, the things that you don't want to continue them to continue to happen, right? And especially in finances, if we're talking about that right now.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, totally. Like so true. And I feel like there was so many different things. I was just like, yes, yes. I just want to keep saying, like, preaching on that. But like, yeah, it's so true. It's like, unfortunately, we do live in a world where it's like this picture perfect, thing. But if I'm being honest with myself, like the reason why I'm so passionate about internal healing is because that's what I needed. I needed that in my life. Like years and years ago, I needed internal healing. From the outside looking in, like people would say, "Oh wow, like you look like you have it all together. You have a great life. Like you have this, that, and everything else." Yeah, I did, but like at the end of the day, I internally, my heart was not okay, and I was really broken and hurt from the things that I walked through, and I realized that I had to first admit that, and then B, have the courage to seek actual healing and to actually, overcome this so that I could be living the life of abundance and be where I even am today. And
Yeah.
so that initial, like, having that like courage, I just want to say the word like courage, to say, you know what, like, yes, I've been through some hard things, yes, I have this hurt and I have this heartbreak, but I need to deal with it, and I'm gonna deal with it so that way I don't stay stuck in this place and I can move forward and I can have a life transformed, right? And so, like, for me, it's just like, it's all about, like, the world might always only look at the external, but the internal is so much more important. I always place an emphasis on the unseen. The unseen is so important. As you know, that I am a believer and a faith walker, like the unseen is so important, more important than the seen.
The more we
So we have to deal with those root issues. We have to deal with our hurt and our heartbreak. We have to deal with what we've had to walk through if we ever want to have a life transformed, if we ever want to have abundance in our finances and everything else in our life.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I completely agree. What you're saying just makes so much sense. And as you're talking, I'm like thinking about my past and thinking about really what really made a difference in every single area of my life was finding that internal healing.
Yeah.
So what you have to share is so important. So let's go into the second point, that another way that heartbreak can be showing up in your finances or in your spending. In this case, it's in your finances, and it's that when you're focusing on making more money, right, on having more, and maybe you're busy with the hustle, you're trying to get different side gigs constantly, you're trying to somehow make more money because it somehow feels like it's never enough, right? You have goals as you're moving forward, some more needs start popping up, right? And so you constantly need more and need more, and you're just, I guess, kind of stuck in this hamster wheel,
Yeah.
right? And
The
just staying
cycle.
busy all of the time.
The
Yeah,
cycle.
exactly. um and just to share, as again, I just thought to share for every point, I just thought to share a personal journey.
Hmm.
If you feel that maybe you've experienced it too at some point, please share too. In my case, I know, for example, growing up, I was never considered the well, when I was growing up, my older sister, she was the pretty sister, right? Everyone always commented on how beautiful she was. All of the boys had a crush on her, right? And everyone knew her name. I was just my sister's name is Evie, and I was Evie's sister, right? Like everyone knew her, but they didn't know me. So because I didn't have that attention from boys, for example, I constantly felt rejected,
Hmm.
and I decided to be, you know what? She's the pretty sister. I'm going to be the smart sister. I'm
Hmm.
going to be the one that achieves, that gets the good grades. And then after getting the good grades, I'm going to be the one that graduates from college, like top of her class. And after doing that, I'm going to be the one that makes more money out of all of us. So I kind of fell into that, trying to fill my own personal voids, I guess, with just success, with more money, with more things to show. And that's also not healthy, because there's not a balance, and it constantly feels like there's not enough. You're not making enough.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Like you always get into this thing of like cycles. Like it's such a real thing. Like cycles are so real. Like for me, it was the cycle of like heartbreak because, I was trying to fill all these voids. Like I never felt like I was enough. I never felt like I was pretty enough, that I was, I never felt that I was good enough at the end of the day. And I felt like I was always lacking and there was always something missing. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was like, searching for that through relationships. And then it's like you get in these cycles because it's like, okay, well, this doesn't work. And then it's like, okay, well, then someone else. And then, or with you, with like the money, like you got in this cycle of like just really bad spending, and like, okay, well, I'm going to keep spending. And like at the end of the day, like these things never fill our voids. Like these things never fill our hearts. They definitely don't heal us. And they actually just leave us more broken and more empty. And so it's
Exactly.
like, and like kind of like what we started at the very, very beginning. It's like we start broken, but then when we don't actually address the healing that we need, when we go somewhere else and we try to find healing somewhere else, we actually build more hurt and more heartbreak on top of that, until we're so weighed down with these chains of hurt and heartbreak, because we're not addressing the healing that we actually need. We're not addressing, our inner self. We're not dealing with the inside, and we're trying to do it externally, and it's actually leaving us more broken. And then we're like even more stuck, and we feel even more weighed down. It's like, man, how do I get out of this cycle? And it's like the only way to get out of this cycle is all the way back to the building the foundation of transforming anything, is truly finding healing internally, dealing with it internally. Like that's what you have to do. So totally. I love that story that you shared too, because I can
Yeah.
relate.
Yeah. So I guess in this case, do you want me to share what would be, what people could do if they find themselves also falling into this cycle? Or do you want to go ahead and share it yourself?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'll share it. Okay, so in this case, what would help break from this cycle is to stop operating from a place of scarcity, right? Um, there's this concept that is shared a lot in the financial industry, which is having scarcity mentality. And sometimes we associate this scarcity mentality um, with money, right? Scarcity, we don't have enough money. But we also need to understand that this scarcity mentality, it's also rooted in how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about having, I don't have enough money. This might be coming from this feeling of I am not enough, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't have enough. You feel like you don't have enough because you're trying to feel this I am not enough. Since I don't feel enough, I'm going to start filling it with other things, whether it's more money, working for more money, or whether it's more possessions, right? I want to get the car now. Now I also want to get the condo, and just trying to accumulate things and filling up a vase. But the thing is that vase is broken,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
you will never fill it up if you don't first heal that vase, right? And so it's just this invitation of stop operating from a place of scarcity and understand that you are already enough,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep. That's so good. Yeah, I love the vase, because it's like that, the what's it called? Like parallel, or what's it called? Like, a bit,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Analogy is
I
it?
love, yeah, yeah. I love that concept of having a vase, and if the foundation isn't solid, if it's cracked, then you're just gonna keep filling things up, trying to get out of that her I trying to get out of, the deep rooted issues, and it's just going to keep falling through, because like we said, we just go back. I mean, it's coming full circle now. Like we go back, the foundation of any type of transformation is truly finding internal healing, is dealing with the hurt, it's dealing with the pain. And if you don't ever truly deal with that, overcome that, then you will never live a life transformed. You will never live a life of abundance, abundant finances, whatever that abundance is for you. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like these are facts. Like these are facts. Like it's just the solid truth. And yeah, totally.
And I also making an invitation to, for example, in this case, when I was running this hamster wheel of trying to be more, achieve more, and stuff like that, I didn't know or think that things were looking good. I wasn't necessarily experiencing any sort of pain,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I did need to dig into my past to understand where that not enough was coming from, you
Totally.
know? So it's also an invitation. Like sometimes heartbreak doesn't necessarily come from guys. It
Mm-hmm.
might come from the past. For example, like I shared my sister, right?
Yep.
I needed to be the smart girl, right?
Yep.
So it's also an invitation to address your past and see that if some of the root causes might be coming not necessarily from present or recent heartbreak, but even deeper than that.
Yeah, wow, that's so good. I'm so glad you said that because I feel like, I do use the word heartbreak a lot. And but I think that can be taken so many different ways because it really is like any type of hurt. It doesn't necessarily have to be from guys. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but like what has hurt you? What have you had to walk through in this life that has caused you pain? And it's really dealing with all of that hurt, all that heartbreak, all of that trauma, whatever it may be, in order to, you need to heal from that, whatever it is, find the root issues, like really work through that. It's a lot of deep, deep stuff. And then you can come up on the other side in wholeness, healed. Yeah. So I love that point.
Thank you. Okay, let's go then to the last point that we have of ways that heartbreak can be expressing in your spending and in your finances. So the next one is buying more than you can afford to basically, try to keep up with your friends. So maybe I know I've fallen into this, into going to expensive restaurants because that's where all of my friends are going. And even though I can't afford it, and even though I'm noticing that when I go to those places, I'm already feeling uncomfortable, right? I like when I'm paying, I'm already like, oh my gosh, thinking in the back of my head, like how I guess I'm gonna have to eat ramen soup for the
You're
rest
like,
of the month.
can you actually pay for me tonight?
Right, exactly. I'll pay next time. Or oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that makes me remember of when I used to go on dates.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I don't know if you've ever seen. I think it was How I Met Your Mother that they
Yeah.
talked about the wallet dance.
Oh
So
my God.
when you're on a date and it's time to pay the check, and I would love to go on dates sometimes, not necessarily because of the guy, but because of I love food. And
Oh
so
my.
at the end, I would do the wallet dance, right, where I kind of get my wallet out, and say, oh, how much is my part? And then he's like, no, I got it. And I wasn't supposed to say, no, don't worry, let's split it. I shouldn't say that. I should just
No.
ask, are you sure?
Yeah.
Right?
Are you
Because
sure?
of course you're going to say, yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then if he doesn't pay, like if he didn't even offer to pay, leave out.
I
Out.
need to go to the bathroom. No, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, right. Sometimes, I mean, yes, I mean, this is definitely off topic,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's our reality, right? That we can't necessarily afford something, or we can afford it, but if we
Mhm.
pay for those things, then we're missing out on maybe saving. Maybe we've said at the beginning of the year, this year I'm going to save this amount of dollars, but then it keeps you away from you achieving your financial goals, the things that you had set for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you can afford it, but it's at the cost of your own personal goals.
Yeah.
And 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 this basically coming from this need of proving your worth,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, what would you say for that kind of situation? Someone that is spending more, but the root cause might be in this need of trying to keep up or proving their worth somehow, maybe to themselves or to others.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, like we've kind of addressed earlier, like, you get into financial situations and, things that you would never want to be in a lot of times because it's actually rooted in a lot deeper issues. You can look at the surface level stuff, but it's a lot deeper than that, whether it be from how you were raised, whether it be from, what you saw, whether it be from even like, I think sometimes like you can get into situations if you were raised in a family where money was like always acting like it was super scarce, or if you felt like if you had these like feelings of like, hurt and stuff of like, I didn't have enough when I was growing up. And so, that hurt me and that caused pain in my life. And, you end up, just taking that out by, feeling like, um, you're like spending way too much, or you're almost scared to even spend. Sometimes people are like with financial stuff, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to cling on to every penny, I have to grab, and that's another end of this, but you know what I mean, like, so
Yeah.
a lot of times, like when we get into these financial situations and issues and problems, it's like we got to address the not the surface level stuff, but the deep stuff of where it's actually coming from. And a lot of times it is coming from hurt and pain and things that we've gone through in our life. And so I will always say, and I will never stop preaching, and I will always continue to preach that any life transformation starts with building a solid foundation, and that is getting transformational healing from all things that you've walked through, whether it was, because of your own decision or just the broken world that we live in. So yeah, I think kind of going off that too, like I just want to preach, like, and just say, like, I believe that every single person in this world was created to live a life of abundance. I don't care where you were born. I don't care what situation you're in, or you find yourself in right now. Like, I truly believe that, John 10, Jesus said, I came to give them life. I came to give them life, and life in abundance. So every single person, if you're living on this earth, you have a higher calling. You are called to live a life of abundance. But will you take the steps necessary to reach to that level? And one of the initial first step is truly looking inside, digging deep, and finding the internal healing and that you really need, and walking through that, and just digging through the hurt and the pain that has happened to you in your life, so that you can reach that higher abundant living that God has set aside.
Yes, this is so good. It's so good. I'm
So
excited right now with what you just shared. It's so true. Like, we have all called to live in abundance, and I think sometimes it's hard to believe. And when it comes to money in particular, sometimes we kind of feel guilty of even thinking of that, you know? And that guilt, that can also be coming from the same root issues
yeah,
that we're talking about. It's like, no, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. Or, and also something that you said, sometimes that heartbreak can also come from your own past mistakes,
mm-hmm.
right? You betraying yourself somehow. You didn't do what you knew you had to do,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And it might be coming from yourself too. And stepping into that, I deserve abundance too. I'm also called for abundance. It can be hard if you don't heal, right?
Yep.
If you heal
Yep.
from, either is from hurt from other people, hurt from the situation that you grew up in, or
Mm-hmm.
hurt of you betraying your own standards at some point for some
Yep.
reason.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So good. Yeah. But yeah, I love that so much, because I truly believe that, if you, whoever's watching this, who's ever listening to this, like, you deserve to live a life of abundance, and that is available to you. But will you have the courage to seek what it takes to take those steps to be able to get there? So,
That's so good. Thank you so much.
and believe it.
It's hard sometimes, right? It's hard to believe. I know I've struggled with that so much, especially as I've started building a
Same.
business, right? And it
Yeah.
caused myself self-sabotage. And this can also express in your finances, this self-sabotage, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't believe that you're not enough. Because you have experienced this heartbreak in the past that somehow is telling you you're not worthy or you're not worth it, right? Because of that, sometimes that's when we fall into self-sabotage. That's what causes us, for example, that that you want to save money, right? In the beginning of the year, the New Year's resolutions, this year I'm going to save, and then you save, but then you end up spending it all,
Yeah.
right? uh,
You're like, oh,
and
dang
it's
it.
this cycle
What
that you do it,
happened? Yeah.
right? Or you pay off the debt, but then you get in debt again. Like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
really good at paying off my debts. I'm good at it, so it's okay. But then you fall into, you swipe the credit cards again, or
Yeah.
you finance a brand new car again, right? When you kind of already knew that that wasn't necessarily the wisest thing to do.
Yeah.
So you constantly trip yourself because subconsciously you're thinking, I am not enough, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve abundance. Let me
Yeah.
just stay in this place where I'm comfortable,
Yeah.
right? That I feel I deserve. And
Yeah.
that's not true. You deserve more than that.
Yep. So good. So good. Yep. It's always the root issue. It will always go back to, you need to seek transformational healing. Like, and I would say that's for every single person on this earth, because we live in a broken world. So if you if you are telling yourself, oh, I don't have hurt, I don't have pain, I don't have heartbreak, I'm going to look at you and say, girl, you need to re-look back inside, because most of us do. It's just we live in a world where we are too afraid to admit that. But at the end of the day, we all do. And it's not a bad thing, but if we want to move forward, we have to deal with that. We have to heal. We have to we have to shift from learn the right mindsets. I think a lot of times our mindset even holds us back. It's like we live in this scarcity. I like to call it a like scarcity mindset. It's like you live in this mindset that's actually holding you back from so much. So it's even just, and that mindset a lot of times develops from our hurt and from our heartbreak. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for
Yeah.
joining today. I wanted to say something, but then I was just listening to you and I completely forgot what I wanted to say. But it's okay. I really hope that what we shared today, it can give some clarity, some better clarity, honestly, and have this better understanding that finances is not just numbers, right? Money management is not about numbers only. It also needs you to manage your emotions and learn how to overcome and find that transformational healing that you're talking
Yeah,
about. Um,
totally.
so, since we're here and we're closing, do you want to share about the coaching program that you just launched with people that are watching? I'm going to post this also on my feed. So there's going to be people that will be watching this later as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, I just launched a new program. It's called Restore. And if you have watched any of this, you will understand my heart and why I truly believe that this program is so necessary and that it is going to transform lives. And the program all like really focuses on, the hurt and the heartbreak that we have walked through in this life and how to overcome that. So I work with women to help them overcome their hurt and their heartbreak so that they can receive transformational healing. And on the other side, walk in wholeness and then learn to live a life of like abundance and a life that they have been called to live. So that's why they call me Life Transformation Strategist, because it's a step-by-step thing. It's a step-by-step process, but I just launched a program called Restore, and that's the foundation of all the different layers. So yeah, so if you are interested in checking it out, you can always follow me. You can always look on my website, which is amandafrey.com. And yeah, all the information's there. So thank you so much, Vivi, for having me. I feel so honored, and I'm just so grateful that we have this partnership as we're continuing to build all that God has called us to build.
Yes, exactly. Before you go, I also wanted to make this invitation. This is an invitation for strong women. I think, like you were saying, this is what I wanted to say. We need to change this perspective that admitting that we might have pain, or admitting that, I think I need to address some of the pain of my past. I don't know where it's coming from, but I can see that I'm falling into self-sabotage. I think I do need help. This is not something weak to do. This is
Yes.
actually something courageous, because it's
Perfect.
very easy to put on a mask
Yep.
and pretend like everything is perfect. That's easy. It doesn't
Yep.
require strength or courage to do that. It
Yep.
requires strength and courage to raise your hand and say, you know what, I need someone to help me with this.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, wow, that is so good. Yeah, no, that's so true. And like I said, it kind of goes back to we live in this like world that's all external and everything's great. We put on a fake face, but like at the end of the day, like I'm thankful that I can sit here today and say I do not live a fake life. Like this is who I am. This is my whole life of abundance because I did get transformational healing, and I had the courage to admit and say, you know what, I need this in order to move forward with my life. So, like, yeah, it's not a weak thing. It's actually a very courageous thing. Like the word courage is just in my heart. It's just like, that is what it is. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Mandy. I feel weird calling you Amanda. Thank you so much, Mandy.
And do whatever you want to call me. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that wraps it up. Thank you, everyone that's watching, that watched us live, and thank you, everyone that's watching the replays. If you have any questions, please comment them down below. And we'll answer, tag us, and we'll just help out in any way that we can.
Yep. Yes, that sounds great. Thank you, Vivi.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you soon.
Talk
Bye.
soon. Bye bye.